Hi Shell, and hello to all you other wonderful weirdos watching. So this week I read Trucks in the series of Night Shift. We're back with Short Story Saturdays! Woohoo! So, this 20-page short story is literally just about trucks. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Trucks. And they are killer trucks. So the story begins off in the middle of the action. They are stranded on this truck stop and trying the radio to see if there's like any news, any help coming, anything, but it's just static. And we've got the main ensemble is the guy who works at the truck stop, the protagonist who takes charge, and there's this one trucker, and we've got three others. Two are known as kids. One is actually 19, and his girlfriend who looks younger. Then we have this one person who is destined to die at the beginning because he's the beginning of the story. He's just kind of losing the plot. The first line is this guy who's about to do some. He looks like he's about to do something crazy, and he does. He just like doesn't want to stay in this truck stop, and he bolts for the door. He bolts for the horizon. He just tries to get out, and then we get the reason why. All of the trucks in the car park run him down. They just they go for him. There's nobody manning these things. They are sentient and they have decided enough of humanity, I think, at least. It's kind of subtly there in like some of the humans trying to come up with explanations as to why. How is this happening? Oh, I don't know. They might have just gone mad, had enough. So they are now just stuck where they are because these trucks are just patrolling this building, and if they come out, they're dead. They're just gonna come for them. Yikes. So our protagonist kind of takes charge and basically just starts asking the person that works at the truck stop, how much food do they have, how much water, how much longer can we survive realistically for. He gives a rough estimate about a month, but then the power cuts out and that drops because the food's going to go off. So they kind of have that strategic mind of going, right, how long can we stay here for without food? And apparently the water pump is requiring power, so about a week without water, so they would have to like try and get as much water as they can, and so they have to like venture to the toilet to get from the tank. Gross, but if it's okay and you can try and figure out how to boil it to make sure it's okay, I guess. I don't know how another place's toilet is, but they kind of have this mini little excursion out, trying to slip out to get to the toilet and bring back a little bit of water as much as they can, which I would not have done until absolutely desperate because you don't want to risk things for like a minute bit of water, and if they've already got like a decent amount at the time and just like ration it out, a lot can happen within a week. It's fine. They can survive decent amount. So I wouldn't have personally done that because logically trucks run out of fuel, and so they do. They actually run out of fuel. One truck goes down, and the others start Morse code signaling the group inside. At least we've got one Boy Scout who remembers Morse code in the group, so they can work out what the trucks are demanding. And it's just the truck saying, "Attention, whoever fuels will not be harmed." Yeah, so it begins, and even the guy who owns the truck stop, he really should have had a name. We don't get very many names. We get two names in all of this story, and that's Jerry, the 19-year-old kid, and the guy who runs out immediately, Snodgrass, apparently. Is that his name? Yeah, Snodgrass. They just trying to survive, and they put it to a vote on whether or not they're gonna give them what they want. Our protagonist is like, wait, yeah, we should do that. There's a bulldozer outside, so they don't because the majority of them vote against that. Just let them run down their fuel reserves, and that's it. Does not end well. The trucks are prepared with that bulldozer, and so we get this lovely little sequence where putting gas into ketchup bottles and using them as Molotov cocktails and throwing them at this bulldozer as the bulldozer was trying to rip through the front of the building. Yeah. that was pretty cool. But at the same time, you could see it coming a mile away, and that does not mean it's any less than for it, but it's just whoa when it happens. Whew. And so they kind of have to cave in to their demand, and so it starts. And the guy who like proposes that we don't, because the moment we give in to their demands and we become the servants to these trucks to like keep fuel on them, is the moment we become slaves to them. And so is right that they kind of have one demand, and that is we serve them fuel. And so that begins the question of, is other people in the same boat? Other survivors are might actually be in the same boat of having to cave into their demands of fueling up these trucks non-stop, because the line of trucks is as far as the eye can see, and it brings up so many questions. I mean, the one where the 3 tanks from the fuel stop it does run out, and they bring another tanker to fuel up those tanks and repeat the process over again. But it's just like, even the fuel reserves are gonna run out. What's gonna happen then? Because that's where the story ends, is just them taking it in turns to fuel them up. That's where the story is in this, like, what now? Because logically, you would think that the trucks from here will eventually run out of fuel, because the people who are in the fuel industry, they would have gone first. They would have been the victims, like one of the first victims, because they are closely like they would probably be using these big trucks as well. So I don't think the trucks have thought this through, and evidently they didn't, because they didn't give that demand until one of them had already run out of fuel. So eventually they will run out of fuel, but it's going to take a little while. And we don't know what's going to happen until then. And it's just, this little story would have benefited just more exploration into the idea. Just like have more and more built to it, going, what would society look like recovering from this? This would have been so cool, just as a concept, just a sci-fi concept of how would this play out logically. And yeah, the other question would be, because of the time this is set in, how would this work now when we are phasing in electric vehicles? Because we currently have electric buses in the city that I live in. So, and because we are doing reusable energy to get the electricity, that would mean that this situation would be continuous. Whereas in the time this is set in, it's not continuous, because renewables aren't a thing. That petrol isn't renewable. What would happen going forward from that point? Because they are eventually going to run out, and how would society go from there? Everybody would get a bike. I can imagine nobody would want to attempt to go near those vehicles. What is good about this story is that it doesn't answer any questions of why are they doing it? How is it happening? Because it's left ambiguous, and that's brilliant about short stories that do that. Because one of the suggestions is that they've just gone mad, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, if you do think about things like, is it the power source, like what is fueling him, because if we do bring it into like modern day, would electric vehicles do the same, or would they not? I mean, maybe this is just a train of thought because I'm reading it in 2025, but hey ho. I did enjoy the story. It's just as somebody who does not know a thing about cars, a lot of this went over my head because there is quite a few like car centric lines in here. Like I don't know what a Camaro is. I don't know what a Cadillac is. I just picture generic car from 80s, 70s, 80s. That's what I'm picturing. Boxy type thing. I'm not very good with car descriptions. So a lot of just the name of cars just went right over my head. So, but it didn't detract from the story. But at the same time, here is the USS Defiant. Every single time a car was brought up, the Defiant would just fly over my head. I can at least pretty much pick out a starship very easily, just kind of. But at the same time, I cannot apply that to cars. Maybe that's just me being a sci-fi nutter. I'm not a gearhead. I'm a sci-fi nut, so yeah. It did not detract from the story, but it did just like pull me out a little because I just like I feel like I need to close the curtain because that is a very weird spot for the light to shine. Even though it did not detract from the story, it did pull me out just a little, just because I felt like because I am a visual reader, and so every time I tried to like conjure up the image of the car, I just thought, right, this is not worth my mental energy. So the light is getting so bad just because of this one stream of sunlight. Okay, that kind of works. Okay, this is the lighting for the end of this video, but so I did enjoy the book. The story is just, again, the cars. not a clue, not a clue. So the image in my head is just like generic box type thing on wheels from the 70s or 80s. Just it just flew over my head. I'm not a car person. I don't own a car. I don't know how to drive one. So the closest I can do is identify the colour and the logo on the front. I reckon that Top Gear has taught me one thing, and that is how to recognise car brands. That's literally it. So all I want to do, all I am doing right now is imagining how humanity would move past this kind of situation, this scenario, because it would look a lot different if it was present day. Oof, yikes. Because we now have renewable electricity, so boy. So it's just not gonna work. But that's this week's short story. Nice to get back into it. Have a lovely weekend. Bye, Shell. And bye to all you other wonderful weirdos watching. Bye.